Recording started.
Broadcasting the boisterous part of the fastest game in the world. So strap on your lids and lace them up, Rook. It's the Barn Chirpers Hockey Podcast. Take a lap.
Clap it up, boys. Clap it up.
Hulkster, it's you and I. We would say the top six, the top line, but it's only two of us. So we're going to make it happen.
We're on the power play.
Exactly. Yeah, we're down a couple men. But listen, thanks everybody for listening to us. Again, you can follow us at Barn Chirpers Pod on the Instagrams. Chirp at us. Let us know your opinions on stuff that we talk about, even in past episodes. You can find all those on all streaming platforms: your Spotify's, your Apple iTunes, your Stitchers, your iHeartRadios, your Podbeans, your Blackberries, all the things. Like us, find us, share us, leave us a little review. That'd be great, so we can move up the standings, if you will. So we can be the President's Trophy winning hockey podcast, and then we can also let our Norfolk Admirals and your Norfolk Admirals know that we're a great hockey podcast and we want to be a part of their team. And dang, Hulkster, you've been hitting the gym in the off-season workouts. Look at that, baby. I tell you what, looking lean and mean. You're ready to rock and roll. Speaking of off-season, we are in the off-season and we don't have much to talk about, do we?
No, not a lot happening, but
we got something fun today.
We got something fun today. So let's get the first line out there. And you threw this out pretty just randomly, literally a couple hours ago.
An hour and a half ago.
Yeah, you're like, hey, what if we do this? And this will pretty much lead us right into the regular season. So,
it will. Because there's actually 8 weeks from today, the regular season will start. September 23rd, or I'm sorry, preseason, not regular season.
Right.
The preseason starts September 23rd. So we're 8 weeks away.
So we'll probably tag in some other stuff to this on other episodes, but we wanted to trot out the idea here this week. We're going to do so basically we're going to go team by team, and we're going to do a would you rather for each.
Yep. And
we are going to do a over under for each.
And essentially for each squad there'll be 4 questions, because there's 2 of us. We're going to go back and forth 2 questions each of the would you rather and the over under. So we're going to tackle 4 teams a week, because there's 32 teams, and that'll bring us right up to the preseason. So when we have the rest of our line mates on the show, then of course the questions will still essentially be would you rather and over under, but we won't have to carry the whole team like we do this week, which is fine. That's okay. So why don't you already said we're going to go in alphabetical order, right? Or did you not say that?
I may not have said that, but we are going to go in alphabetical order
because it's easier that way.
It's just easier. It's just easier
that way. It sure is easier, and we don't want to forget anything. So you know what, Hulkster, I want you to start. Go ahead. And sorry, that's the other thing. Everybody listening, essentially, we're asking when we're answering the question, we're essentially the GM of that squad. What would we rather do, or an over under of whatever the question is? And again, we haven't talked about what the questions are going to be. We're just improvising this on the fly. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
I'm guessing that you're going to be considerably better at this because
maybe not. We'll see.
You know the rosters, but
you come up with zingers, buddy. You always have a zinger. So so we'll see what happens.
So we're starting with the Anaheim Ducks because they are the first in the alphabet, and I keep coming back to this question frequently when it comes to John Gibson. So we might as well jump right out there. We're deep into the offseason. If you're the Ducks GM, would you rather hold on to John Gibson, right, and stay pat with the teams that you brought in, or the people that you've brought in, or would you rather deal him off and get more pieces back right now?
And it's funny that you asked that, considering we just talked about this a few weeks ago when I was saying John Gibson should get out of Anaheim. If I'm the GM, I would rather, you know what? My gut was saying one thing, but I'm gonna go against my gut. I'm gonna say I would rather deal off John Gibson and get some pieces back for him, because I feel like he's going to walk regardless. So I would rather get some pieces for him while I still can. I mean, essentially Anaheim is still in that rebuild, even though we've added pieces, but we're still technically building that squad. It's a young squad that building up. So yeah, I would rather deal him off and get some pieces for him.
Yeah. Because they definitely haven't made enough moves to shoot far enough up the rankings to probably to even for John to consider staying at this point. So yeah. I think get while the getting's good.
Yeah,
if you're Anaheim.
We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. Like, I mean, he's been around for a really long run in Anaheim of not great teams. So, like, how much more do you want to? We were just talking about gaslighting off air about my computer gaslighting me. So, like, how much more gaslighting can John Gibson take from the Anaheim Ducks? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with that said, I'm going to hit you with an over/under, Justin, for your first question for the Anaheim Ducks. Over under, and we're talking about Trevor Zegras, essentially the Ducks' #1 superstar. Well, the makings of a superstar, right? Last year he had 23 goals, 42 assists, and 65 points. He played 81 games, so almost a full season, right? He only missed one game. So over under, Justin, Trevor Zegras gets 30 goals.
What did you say it was 24 this year?
23 goals, 42 assists, 65 points in 81 games.
I'm going to go with my gut and go over.
Okay. I think that's probably pretty fair. I mean, the Ducks brought in, like we talked about a couple weeks ago, Alex Killorn. You got they just signed Troy Terry to a $7 million contract.
Mm-hmm.
They have Frank Vetrano's on there, Isaac Lundestrom. So they got pieces to they just got to, can they dish it to them? You know what I mean?
Right.
But
yeah.
So I think that's probably a pretty fair over under that he'd get above 30. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, you think about with the team that they had, he was able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, he's only played 3 seasons now, but he had 3 goals, and then he's gotten 23 goals in the past 2 seasons. So
he's due up that next step, and 30 seems,
so obviously, he scored 23 goals in 75 games previous season.
Oh, okay.
And he's gone up in points, right? 13 points, 61 points, 65 points. So he has gotten better. So I think that's a pretty good projection, I'd say.
So we're going to stick with over-under because that'd be my next one. Last year, the Ducks finished 8th in the Pacific, Joe. 8th in the Pacific.
What?
I'm going to go bold here. Over-under 4th in the Pacific for your Anaheim Ducks.
Ooh, man. 4th in the Pacific.
It's four spots just in the division.
Just not even really thinking about it. I'm going under. I'm going under. They're not going to be 4th. I mean, you have the Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights. You have the Edmonton Oilers that are always up there. LA Kings have loaded up. We know Seattle is probably going to be a good team. Those are 4 spots right there.
Yeah.
With Sutter out in Calgary, now there's going to be a new coach. So how are those guys gonna function? They almost made that wild card spot. So that's a 5th team in the Pacific. I think you pretty much count out San Jose right now. And I feel like, though Vancouver is always right there, right on the bubble of like speaking of gaslighting, that's the theme of this episode is gaslighting. Vancouver is very much a gaslighting hockey team. They're like, they suck for most of the season, and all of a sudden they make a run like, hey, we're gonna do it, guys. And they almost make it, and then all of a sudden, just kidding. So
we're the Canucks.
Yeah, we're the Canucks. But to go back to your original question, I'm gonna go under. I don't think there's any chance that they're making 4th in the Pacific, but I do feel like they're not going to be 8th. I don't think they're going to be last.
Yeah, it's the trend to me says San Jose probably has another down year, like a worse year than last year, probably. But yeah, I don't know that. Like you said, Vancouver's kind of the wild card that could kind of finish ahead of them, but maybe not. I don't know that they've done enough to go that far. So
right. Okay, so for your would you rather, again, kind of going back to Trevor Zegras, and again, we know they signed and brought in Alex Killorn on the front end, but other than that, there's not really any superstar guys to score goals. Okay, so and actually, I want to give just a little bit of context for this. Shoot, I just lost it. I was going to look up the Ducks. I know the Ducks were third from the bottom in goal differential last year. So they got outscored a lot last year. I want to say it was in the 130 range. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I just wanted to give you some context. So would you rather, and we talked about this last week, that the Ducks are way under the salary cap. They have money to spend, okay? If you remember that conversation from last week. So Justin, you're the GM of the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. Would you rather spend $20 million, okay, to bring in 2 superstar scorers? We don't have to name who they are, but let's just say you're going to spend $20 million and you're going to bring in 2 superstar goal scorers, whoever they are, right? Or would you rather spend $10 million and bring in 6 depth players? So let me rephrase that just a little bit more clear. Would you rather spend $20 million to bring in 2 50-plus goal scorers, or spend $10 million and bring in 6 depth guys that are going to get you 15 to 25 goals?
So I love this question because I think it nicely tags on to my over under question. I don't think even with the 2, so to answer the question directly, and then I'll get into it. I'm going to take the 6 players at 10 mil. Take the depth, because even with those 2 players, I don't know that they can climb far enough to make the 20 mil for 2 players worth it. So give me the depth, and hopefully you're signing them long enough that you can climb out of the basement and maybe make a playoff push next year, as opposed to like you said, they're not tapping it dry at the 20 mil with 2 players, but
right.
What are you really getting out of them if you're not really going to be making a playoff push? Probably.
Sure.
That is, to me, wishful thinking in Anaheim. So, yeah, give me the 6. Give me the depth all day.
Yeah, I like that too, because, like I said, again, I don't have the exact number, but I know it was their goal differential. Goal differential was more than 100. So, again, you get those 2 guys that score 50 goals, 50 plus, like you're still getting outscored.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like your pick there too. So, all right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for the Ducks then. Moving on.
Indeed. So, ooh.
I'm glad you get to go first on this.
Arizona, because
I guess technically I get to answer first, but
yeah.
Okay. Before we totally rip them a new one, Arizona has signed some interesting players, and interesting in the fact, like, they've brought in some talent this year. They signed Nick Bjugstad. They brought in Jason Zucker. They signed Jack McBain.
Mm-hmm.
So they've kind of made some moves. Sean Dursey, they traded for him.
That's right.
So, they maybe they're doing something. I don't.
What is it that they're doing? We don't know.
Yeah. Oh, Alex Kerfoot too, from Toronto. So, yeah.
They made
What?
moves, but ultimately they're still the Coyotes.
They are still the Coyotes, and we do know. Speaking of gaslighting, well, that's not really gaslighting. We know that they suck. So
We know that there's one thing that is definitely going to happen every season in the NHL, that the Coyotes will stink. I'm going to start with an over under.
okay,
So that we mentioned that they have made improvements and they were able to fill their college barn last year.
they did. They did.
You know, for the most part, you know, all season. I think what was capacity for something, right?
Stall. I'll find out.
Because I it was less than 5,000. I know that much. 4,000 seems to be jumping out in my brain. 44, maybe 42. I can't remember, but they were playing in Mullet Arena,
Yeah,
and
Arena.
but I can't.
I'm looking for it. It's not coming up very easily. Much like trying to find the Coyotes in general. 4,600 fans.
Okay, so I wasn't that far off. So 4,600 fans. Let's say that that's what they did. But judging by the Coyotes, judging by the fact that they may move over or under, Joe, do they average 4,000 people this season in the arena?
Yeah, you know what? I think that they will. I think that they do. They will. Since that was over under, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to go over. I think that they will average over 4,000 fans for the entire year, and that's, you know, does it matter that they might get free tickets and it's just like a college night type thing? That's besides the point, I think. But because essentially, yeah, I do feel like they will, though. It's the second year at Mullet Arena. I feel like it's almost like it'll be the hip thing to do. Like, yeah, let's go see a Coyotes game.
Yeah.
You know, like more as like a joke. You know,
that's definitely what you want if you're a hockey club, is people going to your games as a joke.
I know, right? But yeah, I think they will average 4,000, over 4,000 fans. If we would have thought about this ahead of time, we would have wrote down our questions so we could go back and check it at a later time. But
yeah,
it's fine. I'll listen to the podcast. I'll listen to the episode later, which you can do, ladies and gentlemen, on all streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple, iTunes, anywhere you find podcasts. Make sure you like us, please. Give us a 5-star. Little review would be great. Shout out Norfolk Admirals, ECHL, here in wonderful Norfolk, Virginia.
That's right.
Little side note there. Okay, so Justin, would you rather, if you were able to reshape the divisions, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Coyotes used to be in the Pacific Division and they've been in the Central Division now since the Kraken came into the league. So would you rather continue to play in the Central Division, and I'll give you all the people that you're playing against: Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, Winnipeg, Nashville, St. Louis, and Chicago, or go back to the Pacific Division where you'd mostly be playing Vegas, Edmonton, LA, Calgary, Vancouver, San Jose, and Anaheim? And by this, we're assuming that the Kraken would end up being in the Central or in another division, of course.
Right.
Would you rather continue to play in the Central versus the teams I mentioned, and I can list them again if you need me to, or move back to the Pacific and play those teams?
I think if you're Arizona, you stay put, because just like we mentioned last time with Anaheim, like that's steep. Like the top of that division is solid for at least another couple seasons for sure. And you've got some, like, again, Seattle, like, on the up. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. San Jose is a couple years out, but they could make a move at any moment. You know, Anaheim could make a move at any moment. Whereas when you look at the Central, Chicago's going to have at least another down year, at least one more for sure. St. Louis is on the down. It might take a minute for Nashville to come together. So you have a better chance to make a move if you remain in the Central. I think. I think it's weaker, at least if you just look at the teams where they are right now. Anyway,
I think that's probably fair. Yeah, I mean, so just looking at it, just for some perspective to kind of piggyback on your comment there, like so, the Coyotes finished with 70 points, so they were 11 back from St. Louis, but really that's only 6 games, five games in an overtime, you know. So that's not too steep of a hill. The next one up would be Nashville with 92, who just missed the playoff spot.
mm-hmm.
So even though, yeah, that's 22 points, but really that's going 8-2 on a road trip, you know?
Right.
So that's not really impossible, you know, for anybody other than Arizona. But to like what you said too, you know, the that range difference from moving up spots is a lot closer than the Pacific, and I'll give you those real quick. From San Jose's spot, which would have been equal to where Arizona was second to last. So San Jose had 60 points, and their next closest was Vancouver with 83. So 23 points from the next worst spot. So that road for Arizona in the Central last year, obviously we can only go off of, is a lot closer than it would have been in the Pacific. So yeah, that tracks, I think.
So I've got a very Arizona Coyotes question for your would you rather.
Give it to me. I'm here for it.
So if you're the Coyotes, would you rather keep the team as it is right now, knowing you're going to miss the playoffs, or be a buyer at the push and still miss or at the trade deadline and still miss the playoffs? Because the Coyotes are going to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, the Coyotes are going to miss the playoffs. You know what, man? Like, honestly, I feel like I would be a buyer, truly, because if I'm going to miss the playoffs anyway, and I have money to spend, like, kind of why wouldn't I? Let me check. I want to check cap friendly real quick to see what Arizona's cap is. Yeah, we talked about this last week. Arizona is one of those spots that is under the cap. They have 15.618267 to spend.
So there's room.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would rather be a buyer at the deadline and still miss the playoffs. But I mean, there is untold amount of draft picks that Arizona has because everybody sends their draft picks to Arizona to get somebody, or they're always the third team in some type of deal. Like we'd have to take more of this show for me to actually look, or I could have, done this ahead of time, but I didn't know what the question was.
Right.
They have a crazy amount of draft picks. I just know it. So they could give a lot away in being buyers. I'm like, here, have our 8 first-round draft picks over the next 8 years, whatever the case. So yeah, I would be a buyer and still miss the playoffs, because why not? What are we doing? We're playing in the Mullet Arena. We're basically icing an AHL team. I mean, again, we just gave them props earlier for the signings that they made, which is true. But like, what are we doing? Like, we might as well just have fun, right? Or at least make it fun for the viewers to want to watch your product. I guarantee you that if there was more money coming in, if people were buying sweaters, if people were buying merch, if people were actually going to the games, not on free passes, but actually buying tickets, like, it might actually do something for the team, for the squad, and for the league, because that's really what matters. Like, why do we have this bum team in the league that already has problems of its own? And that's a whole other rant that we're going to get on. But to answer your question, Justin, I would rather be a buyer. The deadline still missed the playoff.
So to answer your question, I looked up their draft picks. I got this information from puckpedia.com. They have just next year, because we won't get all into it. Just next year, they have 1 first, 3 seconds, 3/3, 2/4, a fifth, a sixth, and 2/7. And that's just next year.
Yeah, just next year. And I mean, again, that's a whole other conversation with, after the second round, what those players are going to be. But whatever, it's all dealings. But that's crazy amount of draft picks. Like I said, crazy amount.
In 2025, they have four seconds.
Yeah. Most teams only have one each round, if that. Right. So, yeah, that's crazy. All right. So it is your last question. And remind me, did I already ask you the would you rather or the? Yeah, I already asked you would you rather, right?
Right.
Or over under.
Okay. You did would you rather?
Okay, good, perfect. So I did actually think ahead and set this up. So last year, I just mentioned it before. See, I was setting it up the whole time. I was what you call it? Whatever. Forget it.
Planting seeds.
There you go, planting seeds. Yeah. Okay, so last year the Coyotes had 70 points. They had 28 wins, 40 losses, and 14 overtime losses too. So technically 54. Okay, but 28 wins. So over under the Coyotes, 20 wins. Considering what we know now with the signings, the division that they're in, over under 20 wins.
I'm gonna go over 20. Over 20. They managed to get 28 this season, and I don't think they're going to be worse this season. And as I mentioned before, I think Chicago will probably be worse than they were last year. St. Louis will probably be worse than they were last year. So they might be able to scoop up a couple wins there just to keep them at least above. Now, can they match the 28? I don't know. That might be the bigger question. But I think 20 wins seems pretty safe. I watched them play a couple times last season, and I came away impressed, which is ridiculous because clearly they weren't tearing the ice up. Right. So there is heart on that squad, and they did get better.
Yeah, I would. Everything that obviously we are the barn chirpers. So all the chirping that I'm doing, like not taking anything away from the heart that the team plays, and you just have to look at it like the environment, like that's frustrating, number one, and it's very disheartening. So but that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, and a lot of that, like most of those wins were because there would be other teams that were going there, like it's Arizona, man, right. And then they wiped the floor with them. So they have the possibility of doing that. And I guess I kind of made that over under kind of easy, truly, because now that I think about it, like the signings that they did make as well, like they brought in some solid players. So those guys, I forget where Bugstad came from. I'll have to look at that while I'm talking here. But
Seattle jumps to mind.
Yeah, maybe that was it. But point being is like the guys that just came in, Kerfoot, Dursey, everybody that we talked about, like they Edmonton. He just came from Edmonton. Bugstad.
Oh, okay.
So like these guys came from winning teams. So like if that's me coming into this locker room, if there is any bit of like, oh, we're Arizona, woe is me type, be like, nah, we're playing. Like,
yeah,
get off your A's and let's go.
That's right.
So yeah, I gotta say I kind of made that one kind of easy, but anyway, that's Arizona.
That's Arizona. Speaking of President's trophies, Boston Bruins are next. And look, man, I'll take the easy answer then, or I'll take the easy over under then. Last year they went 65-12-5 overall, first in the Atlantic. Over under 65 wins next season, Joe.
Under.
Right.
Under. Yeah. Honestly, we know that Berge just retired, so they do not have a first line center right now. They're gonna have to figure that out. Not even getting too deep into it, but honestly, they could miss they could lose out 35 points and still make the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
But they're definitely not going to repeat what they did last season. Like, too many things went right until they got to the playoffs, of course. But in the season, nobody really got hurt. They got good bounces. Everything went right for them, but definitely under 65. And if I was going to put a number on it, I would say they probably somewhere around 40, 41. And I kind of want to save – I'm going to save my next thought for when we do a bold prediction before preseason starts. I'm going to say like 40, 41 is going to be the number. So under 65 for that question.
It's just a tough, like I said, this was the easy question, but it's out there. You got to ask it.
For sure.
I think they're still a good team. They're clearly still going to be one of the best in the East, but like that's not a feat that you can repeat 65 wins more, in multiple seasons. So,
literally record setting. So,
right.
It doesn't happen very often there. Okay. So, I'm going to do a would you rather. This is going to be another money related question because, for reference, Boston right now has about $27,000 to spend. So, so you can't really sign anybody with that. Okay. Right. And I'm trying to look at 1 second here. Stall for me because I need to set this up for you as well.
Don't call me a stall. I'm not one of them.
You're definitely not. You are definitely not.
I appreciate all people. I think we should treat all people equally.
You are a much better person than any of those stalls. I hope they hear this too. Purpose at Barn Chirpers Pod again. Okay, so knowing that you don't have a first line center, okay, if the season was to start today, I guess Coyle would be your first line center, maybe. You don't have a first line center, okay? So that's the lead into this question. So would you rather essentially, I'm going to put it like this, would you rather go scorched earth and trade some guys away, basically like clear out almost everybody besides the big guys, Pasternak, Marchand, good goalies, Swayman and Ullmark, go scorched earth and get your cap hit back in line, right? Or go into the season with what you have right now, missing some key pieces. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got you. That one's tougher than it seems, but I think you stay pat. Again, no one's expecting 65 wins again. I don't think. I mean, obviously, you lose your top center. There's going to be some production issues, but the East is probably still theirs to lose. Like, I mean, Carolina coming up, New Jersey coming up.
Until somebody steps up to take it, like it's still theirs. Yeah.
So, if you start dealing everybody off, then you got chemistry issues, and as it is, you are going to have chemistry issues because you're trying to force a new center to be your top guy.
And I did misspeak on that. Like, I guess technically the way that I'm looking at it on Cap Friendly, your boy Zaka would be the first line center.
Oh wow, okay, interesting. I love him, but he doesn't scream top center to me. But I mean, he's experienced, and I feel like he's played well for them. So I think you stay pat and you try to figure out which of your guys can be that guy in the meantime, as opposed to just dealing pieces off.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah. I mean, to kind of go back on, well, not go back, but to touch on when you asked me my over-under question, like, it's going to be tough for them, but they still essentially have the team mentality that they had last year. So that's still there, and they didn't lose everybody from that team. They lost pieces for sure. So it's going to be tough. Whereas, looking at it, if they kept the same team from last year going into this year, like, they're not necessarily going to make history again, but they'll definitely make the playoffs. And now it's kind of like, it might be a little tough this year.
Yeah.
Might have to work a little bit for it.
So I'm gonna follow your thread though. So, they have a top goalie tandem in Allmark and Swayman. They re-signed Swayman, so he's staying put. So he's clearly content with being 1A. So as it stands, you've got Allmark 1, Swayman 1A, right? So would you rather stay as it is, Allmark 1, Swayman 1A, or would you rather, he's a couple years younger, would you rather see Swayman take the net this year?
So Allmark Vezina Trophy winner. But, and we talked about it on the show before in the playoffs, he blew it in the first round. It was literally his fault, 100%. So, and again, we all make mistakes. But I would, to answer your question, I'm still going with Allmark as 1A, but a very short leash to me. Very short leash. I feel like if he kind of falters and does kind of the same thing, like we talked about this before, but again, if I'm the goalie coach, like, hey, stop trying to be a playmaker. Just get the puck to a guy in a Bruins sweater. That's your only job, and stop the puck, right? So that leash is very short where if he decides to do something other than that, like, all right, Swayman's a guy now. He's one.
Yeah.
So I think that answered the question. Maybe I went around it. I'm not sure.
No, I mean, you basically said, let's keep it as it is, but give Allmark a short leash. So yeah, I mean, I think if you're the Bruins, like, this is the season. If Swayman's going to break out, this would be the season, right? Like, where
if he's trying to, if he's trying to get the job,
right.
Sure.
If he's trying to get the job, this would be the year, and it would likely have to be the situation you just put out there, that Allmark decided he wanted to be fancy, and they said, you know what, the kid doesn't want to be fancy. Let's get him back there. We don't lose a step with him in net. So what are we doing here?
Yeah, no, I like it. I mean, I said it, so yeah. But okay. So give me 1 second here. All right. So all right. Your over under. So our boy David Pastrnak scored 61 goals last year, 52 assists, and 113 points. So Justin, over under David Pastrnak scores 60 goals again this year.
Oh, well, I'm going to go under, because you lost Bergie. I don't know how far back he comes, but I think his production is going to slip at least just a little bit, enough to be under what he did last year. Like we mentioned, that top line is going to have some chemistry issues. I don't, maybe the team's tight enough that they get it together quick, but if for the first week or two of the season they're not producing, what does he lose out on? Like, a good couple goals in that week, those weeks. So
yeah, no, I definitely see what you're saying. Yeah, I would kind of mimic that, what you said. I don't think he's going to get 60 again. I don't know. I mean, and it definitely, it definitely his lack of playoff production always seems to be amazing as well. You score 60 goals and you don't show up in the playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
is your name Matthews? Austin? But yeah, I don't think he's going to get 60 again. Again, that team, just a lot of things went right. So him getting 61 goals was part of that. So I agree with you. I don't think he's going to get 60 either. It probably 40, 45 is probably the upper limit, I would say, on old pasta there. All right. So I guess that's the Boston Bruins for now. So moving on, I'm excited for this one.
Me too.
Yes, sir.
Me too. Because
the Buffalo Sabres, our boys.
You know, they're a division rival. So like it really sucks like how much I love them. But like they're beloved underdogs. So I just be loving them. And one of the biggest things that they had last year was goalie issues. You know, they had, so we'll go with the three majors. We had Comrie, we had 6K, we had Levi at the end of the season.
Yep.
So I'm gonna start with a goalie question since that was the biggest question last year. Joe, if you're Buffalo, do you move on from Comrie and go with the kids, go with 6K and Levi? Or do you stick with Comrie and send somebody back to AHL and keep the other one as the backup?
I would rather move on from Comrie. I think there's a lot more potential in 6K and Devin Levy. I just think Comrie had a lot of opportunities to show that he could be the guy in nets, and he just didn't. He didn't produce, right? He was more, and while I'm going to say this because obviously our boy Craig Anderson, literally only, I don't have it right in front of me, but he didn't start that many games, right? He was, less than 20, I want to say. And he was very kind of hit or miss as well. He used to be a great goaltender. He still is a decent goaltender, or was. I think he retired. But like Comrie, the point I'm trying to make is Comrie was more hit or miss, who got way more starts than Anderson. Does that make sense? Like Anderson didn't get to play all the time. So yeah, it's pretty easy to understand that he would be hit or miss sometimes, you know what I mean, as a backup. Well, really like the fourth backup, really, because he, played how much he played. But Comrie was like the guy for there a minute. And I just think he was too hit or miss. So I would move on from Comrie. I'm going to save this because this will be your question. So, do we have anything more to say about
Well, so I'm looking at their again, I'm on cbssports.com, and the goalies that they have listed: Anderson, Ben Bishop, Eric Comrie, Devin Cooley, 6K, and Dustin Tokarski. Wait, there's a little note here. He inks 1-year deal, and Cooley, Sabres, Devin Cooley off to Buffalo. They don't have Levy or Levi listed, which I think is crazy. The kid had a hot end of the season. Like
he kept them in the playoff push.
Right. So he's not listed, which means either they decided kind of the latter, they're going to go with Comrie. Comrie doesn't have a number listed to him. So I don't know. But
interesting. I'm looking at cap friendly also, and I don't see Devin Levy either.
Wild. That's crazy. But
cap friendly, they have them listed on cap friendly, whichever, who knows what actually is more. But they have Devin Levy number 1 and Eric Comrie number 2 listed on cap friendly.
Okay. All right. Well, to answer my own question, I'm with you. I move on from Comrie. I mean, he's only a couple years older, but to me, it's enough to know that he's not the guy. I'd rather, you want to go with Levi and let 6K get some seasoning behind him, let them split the net or whatever. What's the worst that happens, right? Like those two guys almost got you to the playoffs last year. So
Yeah, exactly.
let's get another season under their belts.
Okay, so I mean, well, damn, we just had a goalie question, but I kind of want to do another goalie question because it fits in this whole episode. So, all right, so right now the Buffalo Sabres are spending $77.473 million. So they have, about $6 million that they can spend. Okay, with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you rather, Justin? This is back-to-back thing. Spend $6 million. Oh, this actually works. Would you rather spend that $6 million to bring in another? I'll put it like this. It's in the same category. That $6 million. Spend that $6 million to bring in another depth piece and or a top 6 level guy to put on as a forward. Okay, or spend that $6 million to try to bring in a superstar goalie, a la rental Hellebuck, rental Gibson.
My inclination is the former, because they were I don't remember what it was, but it was like literally just points away.
They were like 3 points out.
I know that we've harped on goalie was their issue, and it absolutely was. But you have enough guys there. We just went over all the guys that they have on the roster. I think you can get.
They missed it by 1 point. They were out by 1 point.
So like I give Levy, whatever his name is, give him and 6K a full season and let them really cook. I don't think they need the rental. Whereas if you bring in like a top 6 guy, like you get some point production, which wasn't necessarily their problem, but if you've got the veteran leadership, as always, they're a young club. I mean, they do have veteran presence, but they are still like a young club. So give me the veteran presence. Give me a top 6 guy for the Buffalo Sabres.
I think that's fair because that last stretch of like 10 games, essentially it was Buffalo. Like they had their own destiny. If they won, they didn't even have to win out. They only had to win maybe 60% of those games. So they could have went like 6-4 in the last 10, maybe won overtime, and they would have beat Florida out for that second wild card spot. But they were blowing games, like 1-goal games, 2-goal games. Excuse me. So, I kind of agree with you with having a top 6 or another depth guy that can kind of put you over that hump, whether it be leadership wise or on the actual scoreboard, could have made all the difference for the Buffalo Sabres last year. So I agree with you. I mean, Levy was 5-2 in his 7 starts. Like that's pretty solid for like, okay, hey kid, you just got done with the World Juniors. Like now you're going to play a high pressure situation, like get us in the playoffs,
Yeah.
We've talked about 6K before with all the potential in the world. So I don't think you move on from either of those guys, like we just talked about in your question.
And one of those 5 wins was against my boys, the Devils, high octane regular season offense, and we got worked that game. I can't remember the final score, but we got worked. And I don't think you move on from them.
I agree.
So your man, Tage Thompson, played 78 games, Joe, 47 goals, 47 assists for 94 points.
Woo.
I'm going simple here, but that's a lot of points. Over and under 94 points for Tage Thompson next year.
I'm going to say over.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to say over. I mean, he's progressed every year that he's had a chance to play, from starting at 9 points, and he's progressed every year. He hasn't gotten less points. So, and to that point, not last year, but the previous year, he played the same amount of games, 78, and only scored 68. So he big time upped his value this past year. Of course, that comes with everything we just talked about, playing on a better Buffalo Sabres team, playing on a better coached Buffalo Sabres team as well. So all those things make a difference big time. But I'm still going over 94. I would say he's definitely going to break triple digits. And if I was going to put a number on it, I would say he's going to finish with 110, 115 points.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big increase. So, so that gives us what? So let's see, 110 points. So a 16-point increase this year. So that'll put him over 50 goals, and I think he'll probably end up more goals than assists this year, I think, is how I'm going with it. So.
To tag on to this and pretty much this whole discussion about Buffalo, your question from before, and tying back to, I think it may have been last week when we talked about where's Patty Kane going to land. I don't like Patty Kane. I don't want to bang the drum, but like based on the conversation we just had, I think that is a great fit for Patty Kane. And I think that could help a guy like Tage Thompson get some more goals, because now you got somebody else to look out for.
Somebody to dish it to him.
Right. So, yeah, man, I wholly agree. That team's only going to get better. And I was just looking at the roster. You got your middle stats. You got your Cousins, and Dahlin, Owen Power, like in the D.
Yeah, honestly, Buffalo is stacked, dude. Like, Buffalo's truly stacked. I mean, they are a very young team, but they're dangerous, especially on paper. They're dangerous on the ice. They're still dangerous. Like, yeah, they have a lot to learn still and to grow as a team, but they're dangerous.
Yes. Well,
okay.
I think that. Oh wait, no.
Well, I got to ask you. Right? Yeah, I got an over under for you, Justin.
All right.
So, the standings last year in the Atlantic went like this: Bruins, Maple Leafs, Lightning, Panthers, Sabres, Senators, Red Wings, Canadiens. Okay. So Sabres finished 5th in the Atlantic. Over under, the Sabres finish 3rd in the Atlantic. And before you answer, points in the Atlantic: Boston 135, Maple Leafs 111, Lightning 98, Panthers 92, Sabres 91.
I think
so. Third place was 98 points, so 7 points better.
All right, I'm gonna go on the limb. I'm gonna say over. I'm gonna say they're gonna do it. The wild card here is Tampa, because
always is.
It always is. Are they as good as they've been? Probably not, but they're still Tampa, and they're still a quality hockey club. I expect them to fall back a little bit. We'll see what happens with Florida, because like in the playoff run, they looked great until the Stanley Cup. But most of the regular season, they did not. Does
As we talked about,
right? Does that trend continue? Like, and does the luck run out? They've lost a couple pieces too this offseason. So
and guys injured to start the season. So that's going to be tough. To those first potentially couple 2-3 months of the season might be really rough for Florida. It's hard to say exactly what that's looking like, but that initial quarter of the season might not be too great.
Yeah, and we mentioned before, Boston's going to come down to earth. They're probably still the best team in that division, but they are going to a considerable amount of games are going to come off. Does Buffalo grab a couple of those? And I think Toronto is going to have a down year too. I think they finally get over the first round hump, but then they get like just wiped off the ice. And we talked about how demoralized they look after it. Does that carry into this season? Like, I mean, it's not going to take much for Buffalo to make that leap. So I'm going with the over.
I love it. I love it, and I'd love to see it. And hopefully we get to see it live on the Roadie 2.0 this year as well.
God, I hope so.
I hope so too. So that you got any quick hits? You got anything we need to kill out here in this episode?
You know what? No. I feel like we said, this will be like a 30-minute episode.
Yeah, real quick episode. Here we are an hour in as we normally do, but that's all right. We had a fun time talking about Would You Rather and Over Under. We'll be doing that again next week. We'll be covering, it'll be a full C's episode. We'll be covering Calgary, Carolina, Chicago, and Colorado next week. And we should hopefully have a full squad, a full top line going too. So we'll get some other questions to ask as well. So again, chirp us at Barn Chirpers Pod. You can tell us that we're stupid. You can also tell us that we have great insight or that we know nothing at all. Either way, this is a podcast where we talk S back and forth, so we won't get offended by it. So again, at Barn Chirpers Pod, find us on all your streaming platforms to listen to podcasts. Give us a like, give us a review, give us a 5-star, tell a friend, tell a family member, tell a foe, tell your beer league hockey team about us. Maybe you want to get on the show and chirp at us. Maybe you should reach out to the Norfolk Admirals, give them a shout out, give them a follow, tell them that you love the Barn Chirpers and you want to see us talking about Norfolk Admirals at the Norfolk Scope during and or after a game. That would be cool. So with nothing else, stick taps and sellies, boys, clap it up.
Clap it up, boys. End the recording, boys.